Hello listeners, this video discusses Vanity Fair, which is an English novel written by William Makepeace Thackeray. William Makepeace Thackeray was born in the year 1811 and died in the year 1863. He was a British author, novelist, and illustrator. He is known for his satirical works, particularly his novel Vanity Fair, which portrays the paranormal British society. This novel was published in the year 1848, and his another novel, The Luck of Barry Lyndon, which is adapted as a film in the year 1975 by Stanley Kubrick. The novel was published in the year 1844. Thackeray was born in Calcutta, British India, and then he moved to England after his father's death in the year 1815. He attended his schoolings at Trinity College, Cambridge. Let us have an overview of the novel Vanity Fair. This novel portrays the lives of Becky Sharp and Amelia Sedley. It talks about their lifestyle amid their friends and families during and after the Napoleonic Wars. Let me give a small gist about Napoleonic Wars. It happened between 1803 to 1815, which is a series of fight between the First French Empire under Napoleon and European coalitions. European coalitions are a force composed by Napoleon Bonaparte enemies. They are the United Kingdom, Austrian Empire, Kingdom of Prussia, Kingdom of Spain, Kingdom of Naples, Kingdom of Sicily, and the like. This Napoleonic Wars originated in the political forces from the French Revolution that happened between 1789 to 1799. And from it, there were wars like French Revolutionary Wars happened between 1792 to 1802. And then the War of the First Coalition in the year 1792 to 1797, and the War of Second Coalition between the year 1798 to 1802. Let us now come back to the overview of the novel. The novel was first published as a 19-volume monthly serial, which carries a subtitle Pen and Pencil Sketches of English Society. The novel reflects the satirization of early 19th century British society. Thackeray has drawn the illustration from the British society. The novel then published as a single volume in the year 1848 with the subtitle A Novel Without a Hero. Having given this title, Thackeray has portrayed his deconstructing interest during his era's conventions that regard to literary heroism. Thackeray, or his work Vanity Fair, is considered as the principal founder of the Victorian domestic novel. Let us see the nature of the novel. The story is framed as a puppet play. Puppet play means a form of theatre or performance that involves the manipulation of puppets or inanimate objects that resembles type of human or animal figures. The novel has a narrator. The narrator did not have authorial voice, meaning unreliable voice or unreliable narration. The novel is considered as a classic, and the novel was inspired for several audio, film, television adaptations. The novel's title, Vanity Fair, inspired the British lifestyle magazine. The British lifestyle magazine also has given the same title, Vanity Fair, which was published in 1868. So the magazine became popular of caricaturing the famous people of Victorian and Edwardian society. In the year 2003, the novel Vanity Fair was added in the list at number 122 on the BBC's The Big Read list poll of the UK's best loved books. Let us see from where Thackeray has drawn the title Vanity Fair from. John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. In Bunyan's work, he has referred Vanity Fair that refers to a stop along the Pilgrim's route, which is a never-ending fair held in a town called Vanity. So it represents man's sinful attachment to the worldly things. As I said, the novel Vanity Fair, which was published as a serialized fiction in 19 volumes in the year 1847, which had a subtitle as Pen and Pencil Sketches of English Society, and after when it is published as a book in the year 1848, it was given a subtitle as A Novel Without a Hero. The prior subtitle is changed to A Novel Without a Hero. So in the novel, we see the characters of the novel are virtually lacking in positive qualities, and they are obsessed with social climbing and acquisition of wealth. The novel centers the lives of Becky Sharp and Amelia Sedley during the Napoleonic Wars. Let us see the characters in the novel. Amelia Sedley, who's otherwise called as Emilia, she's a good-natured but passive and a naive woman. She's not very beautiful and is ignored by men and women. On the other way, men like her because of her personality. Her popularization is disliked by other women. Emilia works as a heroine and she marries George Osborne against Osborne's father's wish. The next character is Becky Sharp, who's called as Rebecca. Rebecca is just the opposite of Emilia. She's an intelligent young woman with a gift for satire. In the novel, she's described as a short, sandy-haired girl who has green eyes and a great deal of wit. Rebecca is born to a French opera dancer mother. Her father is an art teacher and an artist whose name is Francis. Rebecca is fluent in both French and English. She has a beautiful singing voice. She plays piano. She's also interested in acting and shows her great talent in acting. Next character is Rawdon Crawley. He is the younger of two Crawley sons. He marries Becky Sharp, that is Rebecca. Rebecca comes from a lower class comparing to Rawdon Crawley. Due to his marriage to Becky Sharp, his aunt disliked him, and after he married her, he alienates his aunt. Next is Pitt Crawley. He is an elder brother who inherits the Crawley estate from his father. His father is Sir Pitt. Pitt Crawley inherits a large estate from his wealthy aunt, Miss Crawley. Miss Crawley has disinherited Rawdon as he wedded Becky Sharp. Miss Matilda Crawley, she is a wealthy and a favorite aunt to the Crawley sons. Her favorite nephew is Rawdon. He remained her heir until he married Becky. Although Miss Matilda Crawley likes Becky, as she keeps her around, entertaining her with sarcasm and wit, she did not like the marriage of Becky Sharp and Rawdon, as Becky belongs to a lower class family. Next is George Osborne, who married Emilia. William Dobbin, the best friend of George Osborne. Joseph Sedley, who's older brother of Emilia. He made a great fortune as a collector in India. He is referred as Nabob in India. Nabob meaning a wealthy man who takes a large fortune in the East, especially in India during 18th century. Let us see the summary of the novel. The story of the novel Vanity Fair is framed by a preface and coda. Coda means a piece or a passage in the conclusion part. It is a separate section in the conclusion part. So the play has a preface and a coda as a puppet show that takes place at a fair. There is a piece of illustration that has got series of installments as a troupe of comic actors at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park. At first, the narrator is a show manager or a writer who appears in the novel several times, and the narrator is unreliable in this novel because there is a repetition of a tale of gossip at second or third hand. Then the play takes place in London in the year 1814. The character named Rebecca Sharp, who's otherwise called as Becky, who's a daughter of an art teacher and a French dancer. Rebecca is a sharp, cunning, and a moneyless young woman who's determined to make her own way in the society. After she leaves her school, finishing her schooling, she stays with her friend Amelia Sedley, who's otherwise called as Emmy. Emilia is a good-natured girl. She is a simple-minded young girl. She belongs to a wealthy London family. There in London, while staying with her friend, she meets the dashing and self-obsessed Captain George Osborne, who is betrothed to Emilia. Another person she meets, who is Emilia's brother Joseph, who is called as Jos. He is a clumsy man and a rich civil servant from the East India Company. Rebecca, she hopes to marry Sedley, who is the richest young man that she has ever met. Rebecca tries to persuade him, but it fails. John Osborne, who is a friend of Captain William Dobbin, he loves Emilia, but he wishes that her happiness is important, which is centered on George, because already Emilia is engaged to Osborne. Rebecca Sharp then says farewell to the entire family of Sedley, and she now moves to another job in a house of Sir Pitt Crawley. Rebecca has become a governess to Crawley's daughters. Her behavior in Crawley's house attains favor in the eyes of Sir Pitt. After the premature death of Sir Pitt's second wife, he proposes Rebecca in marriage. At this point, Rebecca was secretly married to his son, Captain Rawdon Crawley, but he only comes to know this only after his proposal to her. When Sir Pitt proposes to her, Rebecca regrets for secretly marrying Captain Rawdon Crawley because in the past years she never knew that his father's wife would die so soon. Sir Pitt's elder half-sister is Miss Crawley, who's a spinster and a very rich woman. She has inherited her mother's fortune, and the whole Crawley's family is in favor in her eyes for wealth. In the initial times when Rawdon Crawley was young, her favorite is Rawdon Crawley, but when she comes to know that Rebecca married to him, she gets angry. So as I said, she first favors the family of Sir Pitt's brother, and when she dies, she leaves her fortune to Sir Pitt's eldest son, who's also called as Pitt. In London, there is a news that spreads that Napoleon has escaped from Elba. Elba is an Italian island, and as a result of this, the stock market drops. This causes Emilia's stockbroker father, John Sedley, to become bankrupt. Knowing this, George Osborne's rich father stops him from marrying Emilia, who is now poor. Dobbin, who likes Emilia, he tries to convince George to marry Emilia. Soon after, when they marry, George's father disinherited him due to marrying Emilia without his wish. As George Osborne, William Dobbin, and Rawdon Crawley are staying together, now there is addition of 3 more people with them. They are Emilia, Becky, and Emilia's brother Joseph. All 3, George Osborne, William Dobbin, and Rawdon Crawley, they are deployed to Brussels, meaning they become a group of soldiers in the army. George Osborne is embarrassed and dislikes Mrs. Major O'Dowd, who's the wife of the head of the regiment. Besides this, George Osborne was losing interest toward Emilia, and he is more attracted to Rebecca, which makes Emilia jealous and unhappy. On the other hand, he is also losing lot of money to Rawdon at cards and billiards. Billiards is a game played on a big table. To play the game, a long stick is used against balls. In a party which happens in Brussels, George gives Rebecca a note of invitation to run away with him, but this idea of elopement is not revealed in the novel until its end. Soon as the army marches to the Battle of Waterloo, George for a night stays with Emilia and he leaves. The noise of the battle horrifies Emilia, but she is comforted by Mrs. O'Dowd, while Emilia is worried. On the other hand, Rebecca's behavior is indifferent and she makes a plan for whatever outcome happens. For example, if Napoleon wins, she thinks that she can become a mistress to one of her marshals. She also makes profit out of selling her horses to Jos, who is seeking to flee Bruges. Unfortunately, George Osborne is killed at the Battle of Waterloo, while Dobbin and Rawdon they survive in the battle. After which Emilia begets a son who is also named as George. She returns to live with her poor parents, spending her life in memory of her husband and takes care of her son. Dobbin, he pays some amount of money for Emilia and expresses his love for her and for her child. But in return, Emilia could not give her love towards Dobbin because she is much in love with her husband's memory. Saddened and disappointed Dobbin, he returns to India. Rebecca, she also begets a son named Rawdon, who is named after her husband. Rebecca stays in a distance and she continues to ascend in post-war Paris and then in London, and she is patronized by the rich and powerful Marquis of Stein. Eventually, she charms at the game of acting charades, where she plays the role of Clytemnestra and Philomela. She is an actress basically. She does her performance at the court to the Prince Regent. Consequently, Sir Pitt, who is the father of Pitt, he dies. He succeeds by his son Pitt, who marries Lady Jane Sheepshanks, who is the third daughter of Lord Southdown. Rebecca is in good terms with Pitt and Jane. She also tries to get the attention of Pitt, and Rebecca did not care for her son, whom she begat from Rawdon. She also tries to get the attention of Pitt. Knowing this, Jane is disgusted by her attitude and her uncare nature for her son. At the summit, Rawdon is arrested. His arrest is secretly done by Rebecca. Subsequently, Crawley's family succeeds financially. Thereby, Marquis of Stein have also succeeded and given some amount of money, jewels and other gifts to Rebecca to use them for expenses and to free up her husband. Subsequently, Lady Jane pays Euro 170 to free up Rawdon. Rawdon returns home and finds Rebecca, who's singing songs to Stein. Meanwhile, Rawdon finds Rebecca's hidden bank records and leaves her. He also aims Stein to challenge him to a duel. Instead dueling with Rawdon, Stein arranges Rawdon as a governor of Coventry Island, which is an unpleasant location. Becky now lost both her husband and her bank balance, she leaves England and wanders the continent, leaving her son in the care of Pitt and Lady Jane. As Emilia's son George grows up, his grandfather Mr. Osborne speaks with George but neglects Emilia. He also takes him under his care, avoiding Emilia. After 12 years, Joseph Sedley and Dobbin return to England. At this point, Dobbin also profuses his unchanged love to Emilia. Again, Emilia says that she can be affectionate with him, but she cannot forget the memory of her dead husband. Dobbin tries to mediate for a reconcile between Emilia and her father-in-law, but he soon dies. Dobbin also finds a will that totally goes for young George and a generous amount for Emilia. After the death of her father-in-law, Emilia, her brother Joseph, George and Dobbin, they go to Pumpernickel, which is a place in Weimar in Germany, where they find Rebecca in a destitute manner. They find her living among card sharps and con artists who drink heavily and gamble. When Rebecca meets them, she again enchants with Joseph Sedley, and Emilia thinks that they can join together now. Soon Dobbin leaves his companions and Rebecca stays there with Emilia and Joseph. Rebecca has decided that Emilia and Dobbin must marry, even though Rebecca knows Dobbin is her enemy. Now, Rebecca shows the note when George has written when he moved to Battle of Waterloo. It was a note of invitation to Rebecca to run away with him. When Emilia sees this, she now realizes that George is not a perfect man, she had always thought, and she had rejected a better man, Dobbin. Emilia deciding to join with Dobbin, they both reconcile and return to England. The other couple, Rebecca and Joseph, they stay in Europe. Soon after, Joseph dies, which is suspicious. He signs a portion of his money to Rebecca as a life insurance before his death, thereby giving her an income. Rebecca again returns to England and manages to live a respectful life, although all her previous friends refuse to acknowledge her. The setting of this novel is movable from London to Brighton to the continent, that includes places like Paris, Rome, Bruges, and Pumpernickel, which is a place in German. The story also unfolds the background and the attitudes of land aristocracy such as Lord Steynes and the Crawleys. Also, the story mentions the houses of the city merchants such as Sedley, Osbornes and the Dobbins. Let us see the symbolism used in Vanity Fair. Author Thackeray has symbolized everyday life of Britain. He has also integrated some of Bible representation. Emilia's affection and love towards her son George is compared to Hannah's love for Samuel. Let us see the themes of this novel. Ambition to acquire social standing, money, love and economic success. Among all the characters of the novel, Rebecca is more ambitious. She strives to attain social standing and money. Hope this video helps. If you have query, please write it down. Thank you for listening.